getting a super late start and I'm a day behind on filming. I'll explain everything shortly. Very dirty because I haven't taken a shower in 2 days, and I'll explain everything shortly. But first I gotta get some coffee because I'm tired. Okay everybody, welcome back to another episode. Oh, my lens is completely, hold on. Alright everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honda Street Garage. I'm going to do some explaining. Yesterday I was going to come up to the shop early and do some filming and get a bunch of stuff done on the two EFs. However, I had a personal issue at home, basically involving water pipes and water pipes breaking and having issues. So I haven't been able to take a shower for 2 days. You know, I've been having to work on that at home. And stuff. So yesterday I came to the shop really late. I have a timeline where I have to finish both of these cars by Friday, and today's Thursday. So I had to come in here and knock out most of the swap on the EF, and I was here very late, and then I still had to go home, you know, at 10, 11 o'clock last night and then work on the stuff at the house. Here we are. I forgot my camera, and I didn't have time to film anyway, because a lot of times with filming you have to stop, take your time, set the camera up, and yada yada yada. So we're just kind of doing my normal thing. We're like, boom, it's done. So here's where we're at. Obviously, I just pulled this motor out. It's quite simple. It was relatively straightforward. Disconnect the wiring harness on either side. Fold it over to the engine. Disconnect the rear mount. Take out the axles. Disconnect the exhaust and shift linkage, hook it up to the engine leveler, and pulled it right out. I was able to knock that out in about 20 minutes yesterday because I had everything already broke down. And then I went ahead and dropped this in. Check out my previous videos on how to do that if you're not familiar. Now, this is a not typical swap because this was kind of a just go ahead and drop it in situation because it came out of this car. Everything was already there working in this car perfectly, so it was just drop in. Now I will tell you this, I did have to bang out the firewall a little bit to clear the alternator. Obviously this isn't the prettiest job in the world that I like to do, but we're on a time crunch, so cleanliness and prettiness is not on the list for the swap. It's just more or less get it done. So the trick on doing this is obviously got to bang out the sidewall there. When we drop the motor in, what we did is when we had the motor at about this level, we go ahead and put the rear bracket into place or into position, just so we can have it in there. We don't bolt it in, but we just get it into position because it can be very difficult to get the rear T-bracket into place on an EF for this swap. Then we kind of dropped it down some more, and we dropped it underneath the AC lines because the AC lines have stayed connected the entire time. This car does have AC. And if you see the little orange stuff on the transmission, that's because what we did is we leaned the engine down on this side to get it underneath there. Then we placed the mount in there and the mount right in there. And honestly, it sat right in there. It was relatively quick. I personally prefer Hossport mounts. And these are innovative mounts. They're not necessarily bad, but they're not as exact as Hossport mounts, and these are definitely the old style. Innovative doesn't even really make them like this anymore. Also, the Hossport mounts have the engine set up just a touch taller, and that has to do with, you know, the pulley clearance. There can be issues with the pulley. Obviously, there's plenty of room right now, but once the car is on the ground and lowered, this can get awfully close. Keep that in mind when you're doing a B20 swap. Any kind of B-series swap, it gets really close to the pulley. Any B-series swap on an EF, it gets really close to that. But anyway, so once we put this mount in first, then we put that mount in, and then I got to the rear mount, put all the bolts in there, tightened it up, and then went ahead and put the axles in and put all this, the steering knuckle and everything together. Ball joints all connected. Same thing on this side, it's ready to go. I hooked up all the coolant hoses. It does not have any fluids in it yet, but today, hopefully we're gonna get to finish this up. Now, the one thing about this that is tricky, if you would like to retain AC, it is a very, very tight fit. Charlie really wanted to keep the header cover, however, you know, the fan is on the header itself. Now, there might be tricks to having a shorter set of headers to give you clearance for this fan. But, you know, it is what it is right now. This is how we're going to have to do it. Young Static, I talked to him and he mentioned that what he did was he cut the header cover in half, which we may do eventually. But right now, the main concern is to get this car running on the ground and drivable. We've got the clutch hooked up. The clutch actually feels pretty good. You will have to, when you do an EF swap from a dual point, you will have to swap out this line that goes to the back of the fuel pressure regulator because it's too big. You have to swap to a smaller line, which I have over there, so I've got to swap those lines back and forth to there. And then of course today we're going to try to fit this engine into the wagon, and then it's going to be a mad dash of wiring to the finish line for these two cars. But you know, it is what it is, and I've got to knock this out just because I'm being paid to do this, and time is of the factor, not just because Charlie wants these done, but I've got other things to do as well. Be back at you in a second once we get rolling on this. All right, we got Graham over here jacking the D15 B2 up to put it in the wagon. We're gonna go ahead and do that. Shift linkage is ready to go in the car. I've got everything done and ready for this thing except for transmission fluid and coolant, and that's about it. So we're gonna keep moving along here.
You go watch Rocky. This music don't make you feel like you want to run up a bunch of fucking stairs or something?
We're gonna take a 5 on that. Okay, we got this thing in here. It was a little scary there for a second. Let that be a lesson to everybody out there. Strap the motor up good. Make sure that the bolts that you have hooked up to the engine are nice, tight, and secure on it. So we got the D15 B2 in here. I'm mostly gonna focus on this thing tomorrow after I get this thing all finished up. I just gotta put the shift linkage on, fluids in it, and then it's wiring time, and it should be good to go. Most of the wiring is kind of pre-done, so I'm hoping we won't have any grumbles or issues with this one. This one is going back to dual point. Luckily, I saved myself enough wire on the other end of the ECU plug to be able to go back to this engine just in case. So good thing I did that. We get everything cleaned up, get all the floors cleaned up, hopefully get this thing knocked out, and be back with you in a little bit once we start to do the wiring. All right, we got the 4-door back on the ground. We're getting closer and closer. We got the axle shift linkage and all that stuff put in. Just been cranking it out today. We just got to get this done because both of these cars need to be finished by tomorrow before 5. I'm about to start the wiring portion of this swap. Now this whole thing was already wired up, so I've actually got a sub harness that plugs up to this. It's not hard at all. 4 wires for the injectors, the black and yellow, or the yellow wires, power for the injectors, and then 2 cylinder sensor wires for the distributor. Then I've got to repin them all down here in the floorboard. Not a whole lot of light down here, but I've got to get these wires through the firewall, get it wrapped up. So we got it all wired up. 4 injectors, power to the injector, cylinder sensor, C1, C2, and the crank move to B10 and B12.
They know their ABCs, Mark.
All right, let's see.
Turn like a kid, boy.
Yes. No coolant or tranny fluid. We're gonna do that tomorrow. All right. Open header. So we've got this one running, just about taken care of. Tomorrow we're gonna button everything up, put coolant and transmission fluid in it, put the hood on, send her on her way, and then it's gonna be putting this one back to stock. Everything is just about there. It's back on the ground. I'm just gonna put the radiator in, finish up a few little odds and ends here, and then do the wiring, and then put the front end back together, and it should be good. Well, that's where I'm gonna wrap it up on this episode of HSG. Remember to follow me on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll see you in the next one. Keep on living your dreams, pimpin'.
Love you.